Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side, and it's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Green and Golden Boys, a Packers podcast, a podcast for fans who are super excited that David Bakhtiari is officially off the PUP and back at practice. I am your host, Marcus, and with me as always is my co-host, Charles. Charles, how are you?
I'm great, Marcus. How are you?
I am doing well. I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch this preseason game. I know it can be tough to get these, locally, but I wanted to talk about that, really quickly talk about some breaking news. Obviously, the David Bakhtiari news is the biggest out of training camp. He is back at practice, but he's only doing individual drills at this point. He's not doing any team drills or 11 on 11, and I think that's probably smart. We don't want him to go too far too fast. But how do you feel about that, just having him back at practice? Do we think he's going to be ready for week one
No.
Maybe 2, 3. Okay.
No, I don't know how I feel. I think with the other guy, well, it's good news. It has to be good news. It's a step in the right direction. Whether it's really a step in the right direction is the thing that I'm wondering about. And what I mean by that is, do you think this is more them just keeping their options open or David actually feeling better? The reason why I say this is because, we thought he was basically good to go last year in the Lions game, right? He played not quite a full game, but almost a full game last year. He looked very, very good. But then he took a step back just because, I don't know if the issue is, how he's performing out there. It's how his knee is reacting once he performs. So I think this is the next step to get him going and have him available if it works out. But for some reason, I'm not overly optimistic that we're going to see him in the first 4 weeks, even though he is now available to be.
I don't know why they would activate him, off the pup if they didn't think he was going to be back before week 5. I think if they really felt that he wasn't going to be ready, then they would have kept him on the pup and then just had him activated at week 5. I don't know.
So I don't know if this is right or not, and I probably should have Googled it. But does keeping him off the pup and not having him go to IR essentially when the season starts, does that allow him to practice then with the team? Essentially, why would they do that? My thought is, if I'm correct, they would do that so that he can practice once the season starts. Am I getting that rule right, or do you think if he's on the pup, he could still be out there with the guys?
No, I think you're right. I think if you're on the pup, you can't participate in team practice. So there might be something to that. But I got to think that they think he's pretty much ready to go. I mean, he was in full pads this week and,
Yep.
Again, just not participating in team drills. And, I think you're right. I don't think we see him week 1. But maybe he's practicing with the team, week 1 leading up to the Vikings game, and then maybe he's game time decision, or maybe they just wait until week 2 or 3 to have him kind of integrated. But yeah, I mean, regardless, it's good news. I think he's on track to be ready to go at least the first month of the season sometime.
Yeah, and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think the fact that there's 2 divisional games, one of which being a very tough, week 1, being the toughest against the Vikings in Minnesota, do you think that's making any impact at all on their decision on at least having him available? Should it work out, right? Should he feel good enough? Like if this was a non-conference for sure or a non-divisional game, do you think maybe the activation would be different? Or do you think they're just kind of going based on the medical advice and doctors, which is what I'm assuming you're going to say?
Yeah, no, I would say the latter. I think they're probably just going with how David feels, how his knee's reacting, whether or not there's any fluid buildup, and what the doctors are saying.
Yeah.
Said, it's week 1 against the Vikings, a division rival, and they've got, they're going to have a strong pass rush, and they've got Danielle Hunter, who we've been playing against for a while now, but they've also got Zadarius Smith.
Yep.
And I think he's going to come out with a vengeance against the Packers. He just doesn't seem to have anything good to say about the organization after his exit. So,
really?
Yeah, maybe. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say anything. I mean, no, I think that's right. He hasn't said anything good about the organization. I think he's been pretty cryptic, and
we should dive into that when we preview that Vikings game, because that's interesting. I haven't heard too much. I've seen a few snippets of him saying positive things right when he signed with the Vikings, but that's I think we'll save that for its own podcast.
All right, well we'll save that for week one, but yeah, good news either way. The other thing that's good is Christian Watson is now starting to participate in team drills. By all accounts, he's been playing pretty well in practice, connecting with Aaron Rodgers, getting his feet wet, trying to understand the offense a little bit better. But that is awesome. That gives him a couple weeks to get going, and he may be ready for week one. It seems like so.
I think he'll be ready for week one. But I was listening to an interview with Wayne Larrabee, and he was saying, and I think you could probably say this, people, about a lot of positions, but he's thought specifically with the wide receiver position that missing those first couple weeks of training camp really puts you behind the 8 ball when it comes to timing with your quarterback and just kind of getting into the groove of the playbook. Being new to the team, I think we'll see him in pads, but I would be right now on August 23rd when we're recording this thing. My prediction is that we don't see a ball thrown his way in week one because of how much time he's missed so far. Do you think I'm too far off in saying that, or do you think he'll be able to make up ground here quickly and play a big role again in a very big divisional game in Minnesota?
Yeah, I think if he plays, then he'll get a few targets. I mean, it may not be 9 or 10, but I think if he plays in that game, he'll get 3 or 4 targets for sure.
Yep.
But it may be a case of I've thrown it to you 3 times and you've run the wrong route, or you haven't been separating, or you drop the ball, and it's kind of a case of now I've got to work in practice to regain Aaron Rodgers' trust. No, I think if he plays it, he's going to get some targets, but I don't think it's going to be anything crazy.
I just think right now, again today, August 23rd, that if you roll out and you predict our starting receivers, I mean, it kind of goes without saying because he's actually been there, but I mean, Romeo Doubs is ahead of him, right? I mean, he's shown some flashes here, even in this game that we'll talk about shortly. But until he proves something, I can't imagine Aaron will even want him out there.
Right. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a case of Amari Rodgers last year, but right. I think he does have to work. He's got to dig himself out of the hole. He is behind everyone else, but I think Aaron Rodgers likes what he sees, and I think it could be a case of necessity is the mother of invention, meaning he's got to throw to somebody, and if Watson's open.
Yep.
Trust aside, maybe he's going to have to, just bite the bullet and throw it his way. But, go ahead.
Well, speaking of Amari Rodgers and kind of transitioning to the game that we saw, the Packers win against the Saints. We talked last episode about whether or not Amari, makes the squad or not. And we both kind of said, yeah, right now he does, because maybe we take 7. Does your opinion of that change, especially after what we saw from some of the other receivers during the game and kind of the lack of production and a couple of special teams mishaps from Amari? Do you still have the same opinion that Amari Rodgers is a Green Bay Packer or on the 53-man roster at least in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I do. I mean, he's been playing really well on special teams so far, and I think Rick Bisaccia is going to want to have him as his go-to receiver back there for the punt receiver and kick receiver. So I do think he makes this team. I think he's wide receiver 6 or 7. He's had a couple of good plays, here and there. His stats haven't been astronomical, from scrimmage, but he's had a couple. Like last game, he had a couple of runs. 2 runs for 15 yards. So he could be active in sort of the jet sweep, the motion game. But yeah, I think he's going to be more special teams and then kind of a gadget receiver than anything this year. And then again, I think he really has to kind of gain that trust with Aaron Rodgers before he really sees the field more in like a full wide receiver set. But yeah, I think he makes the team.
Yeah. Yeah, I think right now, if I had to pick who makes it between him and Juwan Winfrey, again, especially after last week's game against the Saints, I would have to go Winfrey, just because of some of the nice contested catches that I saw, and it was just kind of cool. We'll talk about Jordan Love, I'm sure, here in a little bit, for Jordan to put the ball in the right spot, but there was a few times there where I did not see Amari come down with that ball, and the eye test just tells me he's still like a half step behind, and he's got I don't know. I think I'm going to disagree with you now. I think if he does make the team, it's only because we're afraid of putting him on the practice squad, which means, of course, that any other team could pick him up. I kind of lost faith in him over the weekend after watching the game and after kind of thinking about our conversation. I just don't really see him doing anything offensively, and if he does make it, it's to your point, just the special teams, which had its own problems this last week, which was frustrating to see as a Packer fan.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting conundrum because Packers have kept 7 wide receivers in the past. We've seen it, often in the Aaron Rodgers era. But at the bottom of the depth chart, you've got Juwan Winfrey, you've got Amari Rodgers, and you've got Samori Toure. Samori Toure was obviously a draft pick this year. So who do they keep at the bottom of that depth chart? Because they can't keep all 3, I don't think. That would be what? That would be 8 wide receivers if they kept those 3. So yep. Yeah, what do they do? Do they keep their draft pick? Do they feel safer putting him on the practice squad versus a Winfrey or Rodgers? Or
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it right there. I don't think they put the best 6 or 7 receivers on the team. I think they put the receiver that's most likely to not get claimed down on the practice squad. You know what I mean? And maybe a week or 2 into the season, you might see that roster lineup change.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to follow. But yeah, I mean, it's always good when you have these tough decisions to make. It means you've got some depth at the position, and I know the national media thinks that the Packers have the worst receiving core in the history of the NFL, but I think it's going to be a lot better than people are giving them credit for, and hopefully that kind of reigns true. But let's talk a little bit more about the wide receivers for a second, but then I'd like to talk about Jordan Love. So,
yep.
Obviously, Romeo Doubs is kind of the star of training camp. He had another pretty good day.
A touchdown
reception.
That touchdown, though? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
that was awesome.
I mean, he just went up and attacked the ball. Like, that's what you want to see. You want to see receivers go up and get it.
And that was a yard inside of him, where I feel like it should have been a yard outside of him. So I mean, he had to go get that right in the cornerback's face.
Yeah, right over the top of the cornerback. That was a great play. He obviously he's still having some growing pains. That I think it was maybe the first or second throw from Jordan Love from scrimmage in the game. It was a nice 35, 40-yard ball, and he just kind of, I'm not sure if his body positioning was off or something, but he just kind of went up and just couldn't come down with it. It was just kind of an awkward sort of attack of the ball, but a great throw by Jordan Love. Dobbs just couldn't get it. But he's a rookie. Those things are going to happen. And, as long as he's making the catches more than, the misses or the drops, I think we're in pretty good shape. And, if Christian Watson comes out and can be a solid contributor this year too, the Packers may have had the steal of the draft at the wide receiver position. But
let's hope so. Yeah, I'm high on him. I just think, I mean, he's still in his only second game. He's had drops in the practices against the Saints as well. But, I mean, he's just made enough good plays to just keep you excited. I don't remember that about really many other receivers recently, because we haven't really focused on that. So just to have this many positives, I'll take the negatives. I'll take the few drops. Because when we need that big third down, guess what? We're probably not going to go to him, right? We're going to go to Lazard. We're going to go to Cobb. We're going to go to Watkins, assuming Cobb and Watkins aren't injured. And back to the number of receivers that we have on staff. I mean, that alone might be a good reason, to have 7 receivers, because we have 2 of our, veterans that don't always make it through the season. So I'm super excited. But we also got those guys, third, fourth down that are more of those clutch players that I'll accept some of those drops. Now, in week 4,